Welcome to Alpha Wolf Capital. I'm Tim, and I want to personally thank you for stopping by. Between the OTC, New York Stock Exchange, and NASDAQ, there are over 22,000 companies traded publicly. I feel that small businesses are the backbone of America. This channel is designed to help small companies, both public and private, gain exposure with potential consumers, investors, even partners. Take, for example, today's guest. President Brian Ostroff from Arianne Phosphate. Arianne has one of the most prolific shovel-ready phosphate project in the world. The high-quality phosphate that Arianne is sitting on is very important to the LFP battery and agricultural industry. Phosphate is also designated as a critical mineral, but I'll let Brian tell you more about that in just a minute. It's important to understand that I do not collect compensation for the interviews I do here. The reason I do these interviews is to identify companies that are trying to do good things for humanity. I want to get to know the management team, the vision, and the strategy they intend to use to achieve that vision. There's a thing called impact investing. It's tied to environmental, social, and governance. There are a lot of companies out there attacking very big problems, and I believe that you and I can help them in more ways than one. By helping a small company become a large corporation, if you and I can become ambassadors of a product because the values of that company align with our own, think of all the jobs that will be created as that small company becomes a big company. Think about the community that that company is in. Typically, they thrive along with the company. This channel is to help companies that are relatively unknown become known so that they can build a following and they can have brand ambassadors that share their vision, share their mission, and are willing to do what they can to help have a positive impact on humanity. That's what this channel is all about. Folks, here is my plea. If you like the interviews that I do here, if you believe the companies could do things that make the world a better place for all of humanity, I'm asking you to join me. I believe that together we can make a difference, and we need all the help we can get. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor. I recommend highly that before buying any security, you speak to a financial advisor and do your own due diligence. Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Capital coming at you with a update to an interesting story where recently Brian Ostroff from Arianne Phosphate and ticker symbol DRRSF had news. What was it, a week ago, that I think was misinterpreted by the market. Either that or I'm just stupid. Hey there, folks. I want to tell you about a new app that I am very excited about. If you want to up your investing game with Wall Street wisdom, stay informed, save time, and gain an edge, then you're going to want to check out this app, StockPick. You can discover pro tips from top investors and expert curated financial news, all in quick video short form clips. I've been using this app and I got to tell you, I love it. I am extremely impressed with the quality of the content. It keeps me informed, and I have to tell you, I've used all kinds of comparable services out there. This one is priced at $79 US. It is a steal of a deal. And right now, on top of that, you can get an additional 25% off. I'm telling you, folks, I think you're going to love this app. Go to the description of this video and find the link. Make sure you use my code to get that 25% off. Which could be the case, right?
I was going to say, are those mutually exclusive? But no, I think I've known you long enough that I will attest you're not stupid. So I think we're going to have to go with maybe the market so far has gotten this wrong.
So I'm gonna throw a couple of things at you. First of all, what was the news that you announced over a weekend?
Yeah, so we've received a strategic investment from a global mining company. Look,
Are you
makes
allowed to say global mining company?
sorry,
Are you allowed to say global mining company?
they are a mining company in indeed, nice, good sized mining company. Um, eh, I think what you're alluding to is certainly something that a lot of people have made comment on, which is you didn't mention their name. And look, there's a lot of reasons for that. You know,
Can I just take a stab at it? What might be the reasoning for that? Would you mind? Let's say this large global mining company wasn't in critical minerals. Let's say they mined something completely different. Let's say that they maybe, from a strategic standpoint, don't want to advertise the entire world that maybe they're looking at this as an avenue. That's one theory that I have. The other could be that really they don't want to tip the hand that anybody that they're investigating this particular thing because they don't want to have somebody else come in and up the bid. There's a whole bunch of different things that would would be in the benefit of the company that is doing that strategic investment to not have it publicized too early in the game.
yeah, look, obviously, I can't speak to their motivations. But at the end of the day, they are a large mining company, and they've made a decision to uh, put some cash in to do some more work. Um, as you well know, with these companies, the fact that they're willing to even put in the man hours, the time on the ground, the work of their engineers or geos or business people, I think that shows an indication of interest. Ultimately, we'll see where that interest goes, but in terms of them not looking to publicize their involvement or who they are, I'm sure they have their reasons, and I'm sure that their reasons are good. What is interesting, if I may, and kind of tie this back around a little bit, and something that you and I have talked about it in the past, which is the nature of our phosphate deposit. So, just as a quick reminder for your viewers, most of the world's phosphate deposits are sedimentary, evaporated seabeds, what have you, and that's over 90%. And with that comes some challenges, deleterious elements, etc. And we won't rehash that. But in the case of oh yeah, sure.
Where does the phosphate come from?
Sorry.
Where does most of the phosphate come from? Isn't it like the Middle East somewhere?
Yeah, that calm jurisdiction, geopolitically safe, and that. Yeah, no, look, no question. Look, most of the world's traded phosphate comes out of the Middle East and North Africa, Morocco. Today Jordan's a pretty big producer, as is Egypt. So unfortunately, we're seeing yet again that this is an area of the world that from time to time gets pretty unsettled. So yeah, now all of those deposits are sedimentary, as are the deposits, say, in the U.S. Southeast, North Carolina, Florida. Most of the world, again, well over 90% are igneous. I'm sorry, are sedimentary, but there are these rare deposits which Arianne has, which is igneous. So igneous is a hard rock deposit. rather than evaporated seabed, it was a magmatic intrusion. Something happened many hundreds of millions of years ago. The lava flowed, and it just happened to carry with it a lot of phosphate. That's no different than copper, gold, lead, zinc, silver. So as much as an igneous deposit is a rarity when it comes to phosphate, um, in terms of most metals, um, that actually is common. So a large miner that is mining, copper, gold, lead, zinc, what have you, in a way, even if they're not familiar with phosphate per se, an igneous phosphate deposit is probably something that they could get pretty comfortable with, because as much as they might not have an awareness of the end product of what they're mining, being phosphate and its uses and how you transform it, certainly the mining of it, the construction of a mine, um, would be very easy for them to understand.
Okay. So the other thing that I have seen comments on is must not be that big of a player because they only put in 5 million, which that's the what 3.8 for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I guess you could say that, and if there was a real interest there, they'd have put in more. I guess that's one way of looking at it. And another way of looking at it is, here's a company that is kind of size and scope, and they are putting in the time and the effort, and they've put in some money, but they'll make their decision. But the question becomes, wouldn't that just kind of be a big waste of their time? Like if it was just to do this and move on and not give it a deeper look. And in the end, again, they'll make their decision, but it's hard to believe that it's like, oh, we'll just give Arianne a few bucks. We're not interested in pursuing a conversation, or doing further due diligence, but here's some money.
Right. Which last time I checked, $1 million was still a lot of money, right?
Yeah, so, and this is 3.8 million bucks. And so, look, granted, for them it's not much money, but also don't think that they're just like, here's some money and we're not going to do any more work here. But what I find interesting is you can always come up with reasons, oh, they didn't put in much money, they're not willing to attach their name to this, they're not this, they're not that. And so, I mean, our stock today is lower than it was when the news came out. And so, it's one thing to say, well, maybe this isn't so wonderful, but what the market right now is saying, that this is a net negative. And I've certainly been accused of being a cynical guy, but I mean, what level of cynicism is it that the market would say the company is now worse off than they were
Because you
3
have
months ago?
3.8 million in the bank. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so, look, I think, look, investors will do their work, maybe not. And they're going to draw their conclusions, and the market is going to do what it does. But maybe one should take this on face value and say, here's a company, they put in some money, the money is being used to further our work on the downstream. So to take a look at the project of converting our phosphate concentrate into high purity phosphoric acid. So it's used in batteries and food and what have you. Um, and they want to see that work get done. We want to see that work get done. Obviously, there's an interest there to see and well, not only see, I'd say validate what we've already done and is in place. So um,
The feasibility study, right?
yeah, so look, the money is being used to advance our preliminary study that was put out a couple of months ago, 3 months ago. Do a little bit further metallurgical work just on the conversion of apatite phosphate concentrate into high purity phosphoric acid. Just some additional studies, backup work, etc. So look, again, I have a little trouble seeing how this could be viewed as anything but a positive. I mean, this is a plus. And look, investors are one thing, retail or institutional or what have you. Corporates are another thing. So, I mean, I wouldn't be saying anything new to say that there are a bunch of parties that we have dialogue with that express an interest. Why wouldn't they? Look at this project, and ultimately, going to need more phosphate, white acid, purified phosphoric acid, if you're going to meet the demand for LFPs. So, I think that by seeing one guy of substance step up, I think that it's going to act as a plus in our conversations with some of these other guys.
So that would have been the next thing I wanted to maybe point out is that if you have somebody that has now thrown their hat in the ring and they're saying, okay, we're serious about this, we're going to put a little money in this, right? Which they didn't have to do, but they did, right? Because they want you to know. I would suggest the message they're sending to you is we're not wasting your time. We're serious about this, right? Or they wouldn't throw anything. And they wouldn't give you a dime,
Yeah.
right?
uh,
We continue the conversations.
yeah. And I think that that's a good point. Look, at the end of the day, um, with all parties that we're in discussions with, we try and get them the information they need. We try and advance the conversation. We're available to them. And there's a lot of guys out there that haven't thrown in a nickel yet, and we're there. So the fact that
No, I mean,
guys have, they didn't have to put in the money, and again, there's no guarantee of outcome, but I think that it shows at the very least, an interest in pursuing a conversation and getting more information. And that alone, one would think, would generate more of these types of conversations with other potential parties.
right. I mean, you're going to say, I mean, I would say you're probably, well, let me ask you, can I ask you without, you risking getting in trouble in any way, how long have you been in discussions with this particular entity?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to answer that specifically, but
This, with all of the parties that you are
yeah.
discussing, average duration amongst those parties.
Yeah, so look, obviously, yeah, some conversations have gone, have been ongoing for longer, some from a shorter period of time. Look, the LFP, uh, for what it's worth, I guess over the last year and a half, has really rekindled an interest, I guess, in phosphate for something other than agriculture. So guys that we speak with that are predominantly in the agriculture world, um, they've probably known us and have had conversations with us for some time. The battery is relatively new and something that, look, you and I have talked about in past discussions is what's made you know what's changed things a lot, in my opinion, for Ariane, is the fact that now that people are starting to understand other uses of phosphate, means that there would be interest from parties outside of the traditional agriculture world.
And the fact that it's got a critical mineral designation doesn't hurt.
Yeah, look, absolutely. So, now beyond the guys in the world of fertilizer and agriculture, it would be guys who are in the battery industry, the specifically the automobile industry, guys who make batteries for energy storage systems, guys who are in the chemical business, because at the end of the day, you're making, a phosphoric acids chemical process. Um, Look, batteries have definitely started to interest private equity, more so than, let's say, just agriculture. So, what has happened is it has really kind of opened the door to large parties in other industries that, let's say, a couple of years ago or 3 years ago wouldn't have maybe had any interest in Ariane or phosphate in general.
Right. So I will bring this up again. I brought it up a long time ago when you and I first started talking. That on average, it takes 17 years in the United States to go from concept to actual production of a mine. 17 years.
Yeah.
We have these ambitions to become an all electric vehicle country by 2035. Now, whether the US is able to pull that off, I don't think they are going to be able to pull that off. But whether they can or can't, Europe is going that direction regardless, right? And I do think that Europe will execute probably better than we are executing. And there are only so many mines out there in the world that have permitted and ready to shovel ready to start producing phosphate. Now you still have to build the mine, and you got a big number there, but a big portion of the work has been done, and now it's just a matter of finding the right gas partner, right? And the window for which you're going to be needing that phosphate to make those batteries, it continues to get smaller. And if you've got now people that are stepping up and throwing money into the ring and saying, "Hey, we're serious," at the very worst, I would think that would spur others to want to let you know that yes, they're genuinely serious as well, right? Now, I don't know if this entity wants to be, exclusive. I don't know if they want to be partners. You know, right now, I would say they're still in exploratory phase, right? They've seen something enough to say, look, let's not completely miss this opportunity. Let's get our hat in the ring, right? So why wouldn't that now spur others that are just as serious to do the same thing? I'm not saying that's going to happen. Maybe nobody else steps up to the plate. I would say they're pretty. If you're serious about getting involved in this portion of the industry, then I would say that would be a pretty stupid move to not throw your hat in the ring, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if this is something that you've expressed a bit of an interest in, you now know for fact that someone else is also interested. I mean, that, you know, in terms of level of interest or where that goes, maybe you don't know that, but you certainly know for fact that someone else out there is interested. You know, one of the things that I find interesting, and it's something we've talked about, and you actually just touched on it a few minutes ago. You know, you look at these critical minerals, and whether that's lithium or you know, cobalt or nickel, or you know, maybe something a little bit more exotic, manganese or what have you. I mean, I think their future is obviously very highly dependent on batteries, electrification, and that. And I'm not going to say it's a binary outcome, but you know, if for whatever reason critical minerals and batteries, you know, go the way of the dodo bird, um, you know, I think those minerals are going to have a problem. Whereas when you look at phosphate, for example, it's still, even if you look at the most optimistic of growth projections, um, you know, it's still going to lag behind agricultural use, and we're going to want to eat. And so, at the end of the day, I would argue that phosphate is a critical mineral, not because of electrification. It's a critical mineral because you literally cannot live without it. Crop yields will, you know, diminish to the point that you will have mass starvation. So, you know, to me, I mean, it's truly the best of both worlds. You have all the upside potential of electrification, and you've got all the downside support of it's food.
Yeah. Well, that is kind of a unique situation now, isn't
It is
it? Right?
one that's obviously lost on the market.
No matter what, we are going to continue to grow food.
Yeah, yeah, and so you know, and to your point, so where do we get the stuff that we need? I mean, North America runs a deficit in phosphate, and South America runs deficit, and Western Europe runs a deficit, and a lot of Asia runs a deficit. And just from agricultural use, demand grows every single year. And so we're all short, we're getting shorter, and we get that stuff predominantly from the Middle East and North Africa. And if you want to talk about high purity stuff like igneous deposits, that's almost exclusively, you know, from Russia. They're probably 85% of the output of igneous phosphate. And then you have China, which is an exporter, although much smaller now, of fertilizers, but they actually don't export phosphate concentrate. And in fact, because of the growth of LFP, they now import phosphate concentrate. That's a huge shift. And so that's just on the agricultural side. Now you mix in the LFP battery, and you've got this demand coming from another segment. And it's interesting because when you talk about purified phosphoric acid, so the high end, the white stuff that goes into the batteries, that's also the stuff that goes in as a direct additive into food and drink. So when you're talking about purified phosphoric acid, you basically have Tesla and Coca-Cola that have to go toe to toe to try and secure that material. And neither of which are going to back down because you need it for the battery, and Coca-Cola needs it for their drinks. And so I think what you actually have is a situation where if, you know, demand really starts to outstrip supply, you know, what generally happens is the price will move to such a point where more supply will come on or demand will drop off. But no one knows what the future looks like. But to me, I don't see that. I don't see Coca-Cola saying, "Oh, well, I guess we're getting out of the drink business," and I don't see Tesla saying, "Okay, I guess we're getting out of the car business because the price of phosphoric acid is doubled." Like you look at it at the end of the day, the cost, and like if phosphoric acid prices double, which I think they easily could, what do you think the change is in the price of a Tesla? Like it's minimal. So if these guys have to pay up to get what is a commodity that is in pretty tight supply, they're going to pay up. So look, and I don't think that that's lost on some of the guys that we're in conversations with.
And just so everybody's clear, yes, the electrification of vehicles is a thing. I think more importantly, with phosphate, I think actually energy storage is going to be a much bigger need than even the electrification of the vehicles. I think energy storage is going to become a very, very, very big thing, especially with now data centers and artificial intelligence and the amount of power that those things consume. It's only going to get bigger. Machine learning, all that stuff requires more power, Scotty. More power. Beam me up, right?
Yeah, and I'm happy you brought that up because I think that that's something that's often lost on people, because when you say batteries, they automatically default to electric vehicles. And I get that because that's what people talk about. But if you look at the projections, like energy storage is going to be a big component. I think most of your viewers would be surprised to know that even today, in terms of energy storage system, the LFP is dominant. I think it's somewhere around over 80% of all energy storage systems today are running off of LFP. And so if you look at the projections of some of the consultants and what have you, between now and 2030, you're going to see a five-fold increase in the demand for LFPs just from the energy storage business. And then, to your point, again, depending on which consultant, which analyst, there are certainly those out there that believe that the demand for the LFP and the use of the LFP is going to be greater in energy storage than it is in transportation. So, look, again, another situation of heads I win, tails I win. So, look, everyone who's looking at maybe some of the numbers coming out of the EV makers, and it's not going quite as quickly as they had thought, and what have you, doesn't change the trend. Number's going to be bigger this year than it was last, and it's going to be bigger next year than it is this. Is it going to be 20% bigger or 40% bigger? I don't know, but it's going to be bigger, which means we need more. And energy storage is going to continue to grow.
Right. And look, it isn't, when I think about transportation, I'm not just thinking about cars either. I'm thinking about drones. I'm thinking about boats. I'm thinking about all kinds of things are going to go to electric planes. I mean, who knows where all of these things go, but I can tell you that it absolutely looks like it's going to, a lot of it is going to batteries, right? Letting you know that what the configuration of those batteries are. Yeah, there's going to be variations. I don't even think that's figured out yet. Right? I mean, but I can assure you, here's my belief. We are going to need every energy. We're going to need nuclear. We're going to need hydrogen. We're going to need solar, wind. We're going to need it all, right? Because last time I checked, you know, we continue to advance and we continue to come up with these things that require more power. That's just the fact, right? So right now, our grid here in the United States, if everybody were to go on with a electric vehicle, we would have no power because our grid would shut down. We can't handle it. It's just there's no way, right? So reality is we're going to have to come up with alternative solutions, and we're going to need them all, right? Including oil and gas as the bridge to get to 100% renewable. I mean, we need all of these things. And, you know, as I said, there aren't very many shovel ready projects in the world. Do you know of any others that are offering what Arianne has to offer
Yeah.
are shovel ready today?
No, I mean, excuse me. Look, if again, if you look at recent projections, um, certainly in the West, greenfield permitted, there's only one that I know of, and it's ours. Now, are there other projects out there? Absolutely. Are they looking to advance them? Absolutely. Is there going to be a market for them? Yes. But, to your point, 17 years, right? So we've been at this now for close to 14 years. I mean, it was pretty grassroots at the time, but you know, so I mean, the other projects out there that we are going to need, they're going to have to go through that. We're already there. So look, for people who are looking to capitalize, um, there's just not a whole lot of choices out there. And if you're a corporate and you're looking to be involved or make sure you have product, there's not a whole lot of choices out there because I think your preference is once you've made that decision and you're pursuing the LFP, you're going to want it sooner rather than later. And as much as you might look at some of these other projects, that's 10 years out. Ours with funding and a couple of things breaking the right way is, 2.5 years out.
Yeah, I mean, when you say break a couple of things breaking the right way, what would have to break the right way? Or, I mean, let's say you didn't get the break the right way thing. You got somebody that's got the funds and wants to get this thing up and running, like yesterday. How long?
That's what I mean by break. Look, we're this will be a lot more effective if we have big partners that have experience in building mines. Yes, we can bring in that talent ourselves, but it's just a whole lot quicker if we can get a couple of partners that have the financial and technical abilities to really optimize what is arguably the best phosphate deposit on the planet and turn it into white acid.
Right. So,
That's what I mean by break the right way.
okay. So you have those partners, and you're thinking 2.5 years. You're up and running. You're producing product.
Yeah, I mean, look, the mine itself, excuse me, the mine, excuse me, um, the mine, it's, there we go. So the mine itself is roughly a build of 24 to 28 months. And then the other project, the downstream, we're doing that work now. Certainly we've done a bunch of preliminary work. It's not as complicated as doing a mining project. You're not digging.
You put up a building with the processing facility, right? I mean, that's essentially what it is.
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's a factory with a whole bunch of pipes and vats and tubes and the material comes in on one end and gets processed through and it comes out the other end. Obviously not as simplistic as that, but certainly as compared to a mine, it's
Right.
a lot easier. So the downstream is a little further behind just in terms of we've been at the mining side of it for, some time now, but it's also an easier process. So, we don't think there'd be a large gap in time. And quite honestly, with each passing day, the downstream facility continues to get worked on, and so that gap vis-a-vis the mine um, closes every day.
Right. So I mean, it's disheartening to see that the share price did not react to what I would consider to be a meaningful piece of news, right? Misinterpreted, or maybe a lot of pessimism out there right now in the small and micro cap space. To begin with, there has been a lot of pessimism in there for the last 38 months, 39 months. Um, I think the tide is turning because you do have the Fed, which is now starting to cut rates instead of raising rates. So things are moving in the direction of small cap and micro caps, positive direction. I think also, you know, critical minerals, gold has been going on a rip, right? Um, I've never been a gold bug personally because I don't know. What are you going to do with the gold? I mean, first of all, do you have the gold really in the Federal Reserve? I mean, I don't know. What are you going to do with gold? You're going to go down to the grocery store with a bar of gold and buy your groceries. I don't see that happening. Um, so I think to myself, what is the actual usage of gold? Right? Okay. What is the actual usage of these critical minerals? Right. So if gold is going on this tear because it's a hard asset, and you got this, okay, great. Does it not make sense that an asset, a hard asset that is being used in not just one, but two really important industries for humanity, survival? I would think that that might be considered a really good or place to invest your hard-earned dollars, right? That's just me thinking, and maybe at some point the light bulb will go on. And I will just say this: there are a lot of games that are played in Wall Street. You brought up something earlier saying that this is certainly not a net negative, and that is what Wall Street is trying to tell people by having a lower share price than when you announce the news. Now, if you do not understand what you own, if you do not have conviction in what it is that the thesis that you are invested in this company, it will be very easy for you to be shaken out because this is a thinly traded stock. Okay. And if you have a stop loss placed just below support level, I would say you're probably begging to have your shares taken from you, right? I know that Wall Street tells you to always have your stop loss in place. When it's Apple, if it's an extremely liquid stock, that makes sense. Um, when it's an illiquid stock and you place your stop loss, it's so easy to be manipulated and get shaken out. And if the smart money, and understand this is strategic. Somebody could love the stock. They could have a bunch of shares, but they would love that. Maybe their dollar cost average is 30 cents. And they would love to own it at 8 cents and bring down that dollar cost average, right? Start dumping some shares on the open market, flush that price because that's what happens when you have a liquid stock. And then once you trigger all those stop losses, buy them back
Yeah.
at 8 cents.
Look, for me, um, sometimes we overcomplicate it. And we can sit here, we can spend from now until the end of time trying to figure out why is it something up, why is it down, is it good, is it bad, is there going to be another battery, is the car not going to be, food, war, the West self-sufficient. Like we can spend forever, but at the end of the day, sometimes it's just as simple as this question and answering this question. Is Arianne better off today than it was 2 weeks ago? Just leave it at that. Not like yes, no, not yes, but no, but. Is the company better off today than it was? And I would love to have a conversation with anyone who says no, because I just, of course, the company's better off today than it was back then, back 2 weeks ago. And there, yeah, I don't know, simple.
Right. I I just want to, a lot of times microcap stocks are and speculative stocks are full of retail investors. Retail investors can get very emotional. Guys that are very strategic know how to play the game. They know how to acquire shares cheaply because they can rely on retail investors getting emotional and not being strategic. So even though the stock price has reacted in this way, I would suggest to you that things are progressing in a positive manner for the company. They are not, uh, they did not get hit with a bad piece of news 2 weeks ago. It was
Yeah.
a very good piece of news, and that could very well lead to more good news. And I'm gonna pull this up. I'm gonna pull your logo out of the way. You're not in Arianne. I am not telling anybody to go out and buy it. It's not what I do. What I'm saying is this is a very interesting place for a critical mineral that is used to grow food. Can I ask you a question? There's a big thing here in the United States about the food manufacturers and the terrible uh, chemicals and shit that they use in the foods and preservatives that are really bad for Americans. And Europe has the same food, but a lot of the toxic shit that they put in it here in America isn't in the European version. Uh, Kind of a big thing, RFK talking about, what they're doing to why we have a rise in chronic diseases and all this stuff. And a lot of it is because we're not eating healthy food.
Yeah.
If there's a big increase or surge in organic food, would that be something that would be good for phosphate?
Yeah, look, I mean, at the end of the day, I think people's concerns on food and what they're eating is the ultra processed foods. But what are they ultra processing? The grains, the corn, they're taking the corn, they're turning them into Frito chips and things like that. So, you know, one way or another, that corn has to be grown regardless. Well, heck, you use corn in ethanol. So even if you're trying to meet your requirement of ethanol content in gasoline, that's corn. So I mean, look, there's no getting around it. You need grains. You need grains if you're going to eat them. You need grains if you're going to process them. You need grains if you are going to feed them to an animal that you are then going to eat. So I mean, there's no getting around that. And then now you're going to need phosphate for batteries as well.
Now,
And
here's what I'm going to share with everybody. 2020, that was, of course, was when COVID hit. The lowest the stock has ever been throughout history, for as long as it's been trading on the exchange, and how long has it been on the exchange, Brian? You know, 2012. Does that sound right?
Um, I, I think the company I don't think, I know the company had pre-existed our involvement, my involvement. And we had made, and I had made my first investment, the company, it was late 2010. But it had been publicly traded before then.
Okay.
But
So look at, I'm going all the way back to 2020. The lowest price the stock's ever been in my view. It looks like it might have tapped 10 cents somewhere in that area. You're right at this long-term, multi-year level of support. And if you think about that for a minute, let's put it into context. Well, LFPs definitely were not the big talk. I can tell you back in 2020, right? Maybe there could have been some talk about it, but lithium has been ruling the roost the whole time, right? And agriculture, as far as I know, I mean, even with Ukraine right now and Russia, what's going on there, I think, because they're a very, very rich farmland place, right? So we've got some disruption going on there. Middle East is not, I wouldn't call them very stable right now. So there's a lot of things going on that, in my view, do not reflect what is going on with your share price. And like you said just a minute ago, are you stronger than you were 2 weeks ago? Brian, are you stronger than you were 4 years ago?
yeah.
Is there even, I mean, you didn't have a critical mineral designation, I don't think, 4 years ago, did you?
No.
Right. Just think about it. If you're a logical person, think about where this company is today and ask yourself, are they stronger and better positioned than they were 4 years ago? And if the answer to that is yes, then why is the share price sitting at the price it was at when we had a pandemic going on?
I'll take it one step further. We talked about some of the other companies out there and chasing down what's an important commodity, and beyond Arianne, we are going to need more, but it's going to take time and money. Even for Arianne, right? We have spent over $100 million getting to where we are today, for which the market has kindly rewarded us with a $40 million market cap. So despite the permits, the size of the asset, where it's located, what we can do, what we can transform it into, and having proven that all out, the market is giving us 40 cents on the dollar for money that we've actually spent to make this asset what it is. So, look, back to very simple. Are we better off or are we worse off?
Okay. I think we're going to leave it at that. Unless you feel as though I missed something.
If you've missed it, I've missed it as well.
All right, Brian. Look, I don't know what it's going to take. Maybe, somebody else stepping up to the plate, throwing the ring in the hat. I don't know. I guess, but in no way, shape, or form was this a negative. It was a positive. The market is not appreciating it, but sometimes you get delayed reactions in stocks. Right? Games are played. Weak hands are shaken out, and then you start to get the smart money plan. So that's the only thing that I can think, because I think this is a positive development. I think it's heading in the right direction, and we'll see where this Yeah, I guess the other thing we haven't really talked about is now that that money has been thrown in, does that incentivize them to want, if they are really genuinely interested, does that incentivize them to want to kind of put a little more gas, a little more pressure on the gas pedal, right? I don't know. I guess we'll find that out, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm sure they have their motives, and in that we have a good relationship. Um, Again, it's a positive. Pleasure working with them. We'll see where it goes.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. But I wouldn't imagine that there's going to be a real long duration before there's more news about this particular tie-up. I'm just going to. I'll just say that.
Yeah,
So,
well, certainly we'll see. We'll see.
yeah. All right, Brian. We'll look for updates.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another interview here at Alpha Wolf Capital. Today we have Brian Ostroff, president of Arianne Phosphate, ticker symbol DRRSF. I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and if you did, please do us a favor. Give us a like. How about giving us a share? And while you're at it, make sure you smash that subscribe button. All of those things are extremely important to us here at Alpha Wolf Capital, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that. Until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Capital wishes you the very best of success.